Hi, and welcome back to my channel, Sage Summers, 7 Paths to Peace. We've been talking all week since it's New Year's week about goals and the 7 paths. So anyways, today is focused more on the social goals, and the social goal that I came up with myself this year. If I was in a different circumstance, I would focus more on one intimate relationship that I have, if that's what I wanted to focus on this year, or a bunch of intimate relationships I have, a specific category, meaning like friends or family, or because of my circumstance, I'm weak in all of it. My intimate relationships, my acquaintances, my friendships, and because of what's happened, that's not something I can bite off right now. It's not something that I can do. And so in my circumstance, I decided that my goal would be just to talk to a stranger for 20 minutes each week. Now, when I was in that park with all those people around me, that was no problem. And I don't really have a problem talking to people. I've done door-to-door stuff all my life and been in sales jobs or whatnot. So I don't have a problem talking to a stranger. But when I get cocooned in my depression and things, I'm cocooned. I don't talk to anybody. It could be months, So that's the goal I decided on. So today was my first conversation. I was at Starbucks filling up the battery on my iPad, and there was a guy sitting next to me, and I do feel bad about going in Starbucks because it's not in my budget. But so many of these fast food places, which sometimes I will buy something, Well, they used to have the dollar menu, so it was a lot easier, but now that's kind of gone by the wayside. But anyways, fast food places used to have like plug-ins and stuff, and I think they've attracted too many homeless people, so none of their plugs work. So anyways, I went to Starbucks. This guy sitting next to me spilled his drink all over, and so I helped him clean it up, and then we got to talking. It was supposed to be 20 minutes. It turned into 3 hours. It was a really good conversation, though. I really loved it, actually. The last few months, a lot of the content that I've been consuming has been about relationships and men and women. I've listened to a lot of different sort of podcasts and commentary, anywhere from dating to marriage to even red pill content, feminist content, just the polarity of masculine and the feminine. These thoughts and ideas have been on my mind quite a lot in the last few weeks. So lo and behold, this was something that this guy actually does. He's written a few books on relationships, and he said that he's working on starting a podcast. I really wish he would, because I learned so much from him. It was a really good conversation. Whether you agree with all of his ideas or opinions or not, there was a few things we went back and forth on. But that's the thing. I really enjoy learning and trying to understand people, whether or not I agree with them. That's why I enjoyed traveling around the world, because I can go into a culture and I don't have to superimpose my beliefs or my ideas or my values on the culture. I can learn about them and enjoy them for who they are and what they are, and I can learn a lot that way. So I feel the same thing about individuals, in the United States. We're so polarized politically and male and female and, race and just everything under the sun, and we don't talk anymore, and we can't listen to anybody who has our opposing view. We can't learn anything. Heaven forbid we learn something from somebody who thinks differently than us. An atheist versus a Christian. I learn a lot of things from people who are not religious. Anyway, so I'm going to mention a few things that we talked about today, and I'll say I learned from him, whether or not I agree exactly. And I'm going to not do it justice, because the way he explained these things was really beautifully put. And as I sat down and kind of tried to write some notes, it didn't sound exactly the same. Again, just being open to these ideas, wrestling with them, whether or not you agree initially or how they sound. He had been married twice, and his first marriage was a little more of a struggle. His second marriage was, he said, just the most wonderful thing that ever happened to him, and unfortunately she passed away a few years ago. He's like, I don't think I'll ever find that same sort of relationship again, because I think you only get lucky once. he's been writing these books on this subject, and he's also religious. On top of that, he's done a lot of studying in, like, the biological and scientific nature of men versus women, and how our brains are made up, and how testosterone versus estrogen affects the body and affects the thought process and our psychological makeup. So anyways, one of the first things that, we talked for 3 hours. I'm only going to mention just a few things. One of the things he said is men's biological nature and weakness is their desire for women. Most of us would agree with that. And without a good woman, or the desire left unbridled, okay, so without a good woman, or if, like, let's say you're single, if that desire is left unbridled or unchecked, it is the ruin of man. So if you marry somebody who's not a good woman, or you get involved with somebody who's not a good woman, or you just leave that desire unchecked, his opinion was that men without a good woman in their life somewhat turn to ruin in different ways. And men that make that the focus of their life, but completely unbridled, well, we've seen that. I mean, we've seen men, build these empires and great businesses and do all these things, and they leave those desires unchecked, and what happens? I mean, it ruins them. It ruins all their financial empire. It ruins their relationships. It can ruin their whole life if they don't discipline that one area of their life. And he said, so because this is men's biological nature, he said they have to stay close to God in order to guard that desire. I agree with that. I thought that was kind of obvious. But if you really think about it and all that entails, and, sometimes in, like, the feminist idea, men and, the idea is that women are fighting for equality and stuff. But if a man's whole makeup and his whole focus and his whole desire in life is women, I mean, who's on top? You know what I mean? And I don't think we should be battling for a top position or anything. That's not the point. But the point is to recognize that what we do for men and what it means to them, and how much men and women complement each other. And that's kind of the feeling that I was left with that idea. Now, he said on the flip side, women's nature is their emotions and affection and attention. That's what he said kind of the weakness or the core of women are. And if those things are left unchecked, their emotions, their affection, and their attention, if those things are left unchecked for a woman, and she doesn't put these things in the Lord's hands and seek, at least that, because in both of these, if the man or woman is single and they don't have any relationship around, as long as they're putting this in the Lord's hands, they won't turn to ruin. And then he, I asked him a question, and I told him one of the things that I hear online all the time is men are logical and women are emotional, and that's like our base makeup. And I told him, I said, honestly, I don't like that. I don't like it when people say that. I don't think I'm the only woman, but what I hear in that says that women are inferior, because usually when a man says, oh, men are logical and women are just emotional, it is. It's usually that caveat, just emotional. It's usually the idea to say, women are all over the place and can't control themselves and da-da-da. That's usually, when somebody says that sentence, that's usually what they're meaning. And so I don't like it. I don't appreciate it, nor do I believe that that's necessarily true, because I can tell you how many men out there are completely emotionally unhinged. But we do know that women do tend, the feminine traits that we all kind of concede to that are more feminine is compassion and empathy and nurturing and love and kindness and those sort of things. We usually think of the masculine traits as like direct and leading and decision making and, strong and, provision and things like that. All of those things require a logical mind, and the emotional stuff requires, heart and soul. So I don't necessarily totally disagree with it, but in my opinion, it's often used as a way to dismiss women, and then really you're gonna tell me that because I'm a woman I'm not logical, like and that none of my friends are, because when I go outside, or at least when I had, good friends around me and stuff, my female friends have always been very logical. And I put this to him too. I said, okay, look, men's hormones and their desire in that particular area, I'm trying to be PG about what I'm saying, but I'll leave it at that. Men's hormones, okay, direct them to make a lot of decisions that are not logical at all, And to me, I would say that they're emotional. I would say that that's completely an emotional decision. Like I just used the example, a man can work all the way into his 50s and have created this amazing business and done all of these things and have all these people in his family and in his community and everything relying on him, and have all these ducks in a row. And this woman comes into his life and he's tempted by that decision and he makes bad decisions, and then he could end up in jail. All of his money is taken away, like his whole life crumbles. His wife divorces him, his kids are gone. Like his whole life is gone from that one decision, and you're telling me that's not emotional? Because it's not logical. If he sat down and wrote it out on a piece of paper, it would not be considered logical. So he kind of rebutted that a little bit, and he said, no. He said those hormones are actually, that is our biology. We were created that way. That is our biological makeup. That's not something that we necessarily control. When we see something with our eyes that is meant to be pleasing to us, because we are meant to go after that in order to populate the earth, so we're made up that way, and that's an act out of our biology. He said afterwards, then it can become very emotional and you're not thinking correctly and that sort of stuff. He said, but the initial part of that is not emotional at all. It's just our biological makeup. It is just what it is, I could kind of see what he was saying. People do believe that men can just go have sex and be emotionless about it, and not be entirely connected, even if they're married and, they want to have sex that night, and but yet they had a disagreement or something like that with their wife. Yeah, their wife is not interested, and that is because the emotions are there, and hello, we just had this big, disagreement and everything, and that's all you think about. And sometimes, and I don't, from what I've learned anyways, that really isn't what the whole of what the man is thinking. It isn't just a physical act. It is a lot more behind that, including emotional and intimacy and connection and everything else. But yeah, he could probably put the fight aside and do that, where women, no, we want to resolve this first, generally speaking, obviously. Okay, this is all generalities, what he and I was talking about. But so he had some good points. And so another thing he mentioned in that rebuttal, I was like, wait a minute. I said, no, because, as far as women being just more emotional, or at least that's their first response and that's what they act out of, versus men being logical, blah, blah, blah. Part of my rebuttal was the women that I grew up with, not all, okay, but a lot of the women that I grew up with and I was surrounded with are very logical. And he's like, oh, okay. He goes, well, I don't think that's necessarily the first response to women's nature. So those women had to have been really religious. And he said, yeah, because they're getting those emotions and affection and attention met by the Lord, by God. So it grounds them so that they think more logically. So see, just saying that's where, again, I would say that men's... in that same respect, if you want to flip that coin, and you said that men's nature is in their desire for women, in their whole desire for women, but also in their physical desire for women. Well, then I would have to recount that and say, well, if a man comes to God and he puts God as the foundation and he therefore controls that desire that he has, then that's when the man becomes logical. If you say that women's nature is their emotions, affection, and attention, but if they come to God, those things are fulfilled, so therefore then they think more logically, then it also means that men's weakness, therefore, is his physical desire and desire, period, for women. And if he disciplines that and he comes to God, then he becomes logical. I don't think you can just say it's men's biological nature and has nothing to do with emotions. I don't know. I need to think on that. Anyway. Something else he said, which kind of struck me because he didn't know anything about me. We're two strangers, right, having a conversation. And he said, our life choices and circumstances can physically change our hormonal makeup. Okay, yeah. Therefore, the way we think from a biological standpoint. This goes to, he's done a lot of studying and educated himself on the scientific, the difference of the brain between men and women and our psychological makeup based on not just our brain and how things fire off, but also our hormones that affect the makeup of our decision-making process. And so he said that the choices and our circumstances can physically change our hormones and our biological makeup. He said, so for example, if as a child you were left to find or develop resources or create provisions for those around you, or you find yourself in a leadership and decision-making role, then you probably have more testosterone in your body than another woman who wasn't in those positions, who was more taken care of or could nurture and love and do kind of more feminine roles. I thought that was interesting because him not knowing me, that's exactly how my childhood was. I was always left to find and develop resources and not necessarily provide for other people, but provide for those around me emotionally. I was meant to be but definitely meant to be stable and to be the one that was relied on in that way. I'm always analyzing and trying to come up with logical solutions to things because, it is in part, from my upbringing. That was my role, and that was how to keep chaos out of our life. There wasn't a lot of adults around that would do that, and I am a tomboy. And so I wonder if I probably do have more testosterone going through me. Again, I don't think that women are not logical, so I still don't like that statement. But I am also emotional. But unless I'm in a complete state of trauma and not reading the scriptures, like if I'm reading the scriptures and I'm really trying to follow God and learning more and more about Him and doing those sort of things, most of the time I will follow a logical conclusion before I let emotions make the decision for me. Okay, and so the last thing that he had mentioned, now keep in mind again he's religious, so that's kind of where I think he's coming from with this. However, this same sort of thing I have heard from people who are just talking about the masculine and feminine energy in the world type thing. He said men hold the authority and women hold the power. Now, I'm not going to really comment on that. Some people have a problem with the word authority. Some people have a problem with the word power. We have problems all over the place nowadays. But I think that's a pretty powerful statement. And so I want to know what you guys think. I want to know what you guys think about all these different points that he that we mulled over and discussed. And I mean, there were tons. I could have picked anything from the conversation, but and apparently, as I've expressed it to you, I still have a lot more pondering to do on it. But anyways, yeah, it was meant to be just a 20-minute conversation, but he had the time and he was very interested in the conversation, as was I. I really enjoyed talking to somebody who was so open about it and willing to go back and forth and kind of vie a little bit here and there, and he seemed knowledgeable. Anyways, he gave me his card, and it was a really great conversation, and I enjoyed it very much. I think, I mean, this is my New Year's resolution. Again, if some of you are listening, you know, you've got your family members, you've got your friends, you've got your closer social circle, you could make some New Year's resolutions based on that. If you want to do something where you know, if like you have a hard time getting outside of yourself and talking to a stranger, as far as homelessness goes, I think this is actually one of the biggest answers, is just talking to them. So if you see somebody and they're homeless, don't turn away, don't look away. Go up and just talk to them. Spend 20 minutes of your time. Or not a homeless person. I mean, I think that this could just bring the world back to a better place, you know. We used to rely on each other and count on each other and respect each other, you know what I mean? So talk to somebody. If you want to even make it a bigger challenge, try bringing things up that are a little polarizing. And if somebody's got a different opinion than you, then listen to them. Listen to them and try to find some good in what they're saying. That's the thing. Not, you know, again, there are lots of people that I totally disagree with, and I could tell you right now that I could still listen and find something that I agree with. Again, I'm religious, so I mean, we're all children of God. Shouldn't we be trying to do that with each other, you know? And if you're not religious, we're still all here. We're all humans. We should all try to have some sort of respect and compassion and care. We know that we all have feelings. We all want love. We all want to be cared for. We all want to be needed. Everybody, the millionaire, the homeless person, you know, no matter what race, nationality you are, we're all the same in that sense. I'll leave you with that. Please comment down below. Tell me what you think, you know, on these subjects. I'd be really interested in reading your comments. And thank you guys so much for commenting and liking and, you know, subscribing to my videos. I really do appreciate reading what you guys have written. It is really helping me the last few days. But I just don't have time to respond right now. I don't have time for much more than making these videos. You know, I am in this public place, and I know everybody says, oh, don't worry if people come in your, you know, walk in while you're doing a video and stuff. But ironically enough, I'm very private in certain things, or at least, you know, if I'm talking even on the phone with somebody, I'll leave and go somewhere private so I can have that conversation with just that person. You know what I mean? You clicked on the video, so you've chosen into this conversation, but somebody sitting next to me, you know, or around, I'm sharing some things, even just the stuff that I shared about this conversation with this guy. It can make other people feel, you know, weird and uncomfortable. Some of you watching this might think, oh, well, that's just dumb, and this is, you know. So, again, I invite your comments, but I don't like to impose that on people that are just sharing the same breathing space as me. Anyways, so, yeah, comment down below. I appreciate it. Thank you. Bye.